What did you take on the coverage of deaths from the bodybuilding community?
You're pushing yourself to extremes.
It's not as prestigious maybe to get a pro card, right?
I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win, and I'm gonna bust my ass.
Why did you pick bodybuilding as your career?
I'm just gonna keep going, keep pushing, keep pushing. I mean, our bodies are amazing at being resilient. What's up, guys?
I'm a big fan of yours, man. I've always been following your career.
Man, thank you.
Congrats on the new baby, man. I know you guys had a baby like this year, right?
Yeah, 9 months. He's 9 months, man. He's growing big and strong, man.
Amazing. Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So Steve, you originally from Texas? You were born in Texas?
No, I've been in Texas 20 years. I grew up in actually Detroit, Michigan. That was where I was born, and then moved to Dallas when I was 21.
I thought you were from Boston or something, man.
No. Where you got? Where's your office at?
New York, Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, but I love Texas, man. I know a lot of people moved out there in the last couple of years, especially from New York, right?
Yeah, big. Texas has been one of the transplant states between California and New York. There's a lot of people coming out.
Yeah, definitely, man. You like it out there, right?
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I mean, right now is the dog days of summer where it's 100, 105, 110 degrees, but you get past that, it's very nice winters. It's a really good state, good energy, good people, good economy.
Why did you pick bodybuilding as your career? Because I know, obviously, I've seen videos of you saying you're very strong as a teenager coming up, right? But making it a career is like a very, very specific choice, you know?
Man, for bodybuilding, it was something I always had a passion for, like with lifting. Like I loved it when I played sports. I was heavily in sports. I probably could have played in the NHL. A bunch of guys that I played with went to NHL. I was very, very good in hockey. I played football in high school. So I loved like lifting, being the biggest, strongest, fastest guy on the field or on the ice. And then that kind of the iron bug, bit me. And it was like I just loved, and I responded well. Like, so I would get in the gym and I was strong and I'd put on muscle pretty easy. So I was like, man, this is fun. I really like this. But it complemented what I did. And then that eventually I went to some bodybuilding shows, growing up in Detroit. It led to, I went at like 14 or 15 is when I first time I ever went to an Arnold Classic, because it's like a 3-hour car drive. Mm-hmm. So, you go to that expo and you're like, man, I want to do this. I want to get on stage. But I was smart about it. I went to school. I pursued a career in firefighting and as a paramedic as well. And so did that in conjunction with wanting to pursue bodybuilding at a high level, and had a lot of success young, won team nationals at 18, 19. And then that translated into, kind of jump starting my career into the national level shows and having success. And, that at that time, there was a lot of eyeballs on the national level shows through channels like Muscular Development back in the day. And when it was like really, that they would follow all the up and coming guys. And, kind of, I mean, in essence, a hobby turned into a career, and it was just very fruitful. And I just followed that path and just worked hard.
I was looking at your stats. How many years did it take you to get a pro card? It was a few years, right?
Yeah, I started, let's see, I was 20, it was about 4 years. It was about 4 years. So pretty quick. 22 to like 25, just turning 26. So I turned pro at 25.
These days, there's a lot more shows where you can get a pro card, right? From what I understand. So
yeah, it's definitely more diluted, I guess you could say, because I mean, when I came up, they only were giving out 2 or 3 pro cards a year. Like now they give out maybe 20 a show. Where now
it's a lot.
The year I won, it was Tamer El Gundy that won with me. I won the overall at the USA, and John De La Rosa. Like we were the 2 or 3 winners of the USAs that year. So, that was much more prestigious, in my opinion, winning back then with limited pro cards versus now, where it seems like, first, second place, if you're related to the guy, you might get a pro card too. I mean,
oh, are you suggesting like politics or something, or favorites?
No, I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of just too many given out.
I know. And
it's just like money, when the government prints too much money, it devalues it. It's like when you give out too many cards, it kind of devalues the IFBB pro status as being more elite.
Sure. It's a great topic that you brought it up, because I was talking to Tamer about it. You mentioned Tamer right now, right? You got a pro card in the same year as him. And Tamer now is one of the biggest promoters in the sport of bodybuilding, right? He's basically running like over 100 shows, probably 200 shows. Like it's something like tremendous like that. You know what I mean? A great guy. But I was talking to him about that, right? I guess you're right because it's not as prestigious maybe to get a pro card, right? But it brought more people into the sport, right? So like, I don't know, it's kind of like a 50-50, right?
It is. It is. I mean, still, the sport can grow. I think with having the the amateur shows, the national shows, and keep that flowing. But it kind of when you look at it, I think when I competed and again limited pro cards, the national shows were stacked. I mean, people loved watching the who's going to win the next card, who's the next guy up and coming. Like now, you don't even know who's competing at nationals. Really, there's no coverage. There's no like hype behind it as much as it was.
Yeah.
And I think that brought a lot of, attention. And then when you won the pro card, you're like, man, that guy's, he's going to be somewhere. A lot of eyeballs were on him. Now,
Mhm.
guys that go from nationals graduate to the pros, it's kind of like, well, okay, we'll see. Maybe they might be good. Who knows? And they kind of just, most of them just disappear.
Yeah, you're right about that. So if you were starting your career right now in bodybuilding, right, and you wanted to get a pro card, what advice would you give to yourself now? Like, what strategy would you take to become a pro these days? Would you think you would get the pro card faster?
Definitely different. With the media outlets, social media, with like you guys, there's a lot more opportunity to kind of get out and engage with fans versus when I kind of came up in the late, 2005 to 10 and turned pro in 2011. Like social media was just getting started. There was a lot of, there wasn't as much access to the athletes. So it's, like utilizing social media, engaging with fans, giving them the content you want. That's all super valuable
Hmm.
to building of yourself because in bodybuilding like your name is your brand, who you are is your brand ultimately, and you got to look at it at a business perspective. And that's what I always did. I admired guys like Jay Cutler that did that excellent. Like he was one of the pioneers in that, taking your bodybuilding career and what you love to do into and making it a business, monetizing it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he definitely very successful when it comes to that, 100%. I saw your video you posted, maybe it was yesterday, but you said bodybuilding is the healthiest sport and it's also the unhealthiest sport. Can you explain what you mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, the lifestyle in general of bodybuilding, you're very conscious of eating very healthy, you're training, you're exercising, you're moving, you're conscious of getting good sleep, you're usually doing a lot of things that create very healthy humans. But then the downside of it is, during prep, the supplement use, the steroid use, the amount of food. Usually, most guys are overtrained. That creates a lot of stress on the body. And in long term, if you're not very cautious and you don't do preventative, things like get blood work done and keep up with, giving your body a break when it needs it, it can cause a lot of long-term damage. And you see some guys that abuse their body and it's a shame. They either have an early death, they have a lot of health problems, in an early age, like in their 50s 60s, when it shouldn't be happening. So I think there's smart ways to approach it. Absolutely.
Speaking of that, I mean, I guess what did you take on the coverage of deaths from the bodybuilding community in the last couple of years? Do you think it's sort of like people think it's a big thing because it's covered more by the media now as opposed to before? Do you think it was a spike in your opinion?
No, there definitely was a spike. I mean, you'd hear about guys, or it'd be a freak thing that would happen. Sometimes it's a genetic issue, a heart issue, or somebody went too extreme with dehydrating before a show and trying to peak for shows. And I mean, again, you're causing a lot of stress on the body. And if something's weak, if your heart's a little weak or whatever it is, if your kidneys are taxed, and it just there could that's consequences of putting your body to extreme levels of body fat levels of water depletion levels, that kind of mineral depletion levels, all that. But I think the most recent issue, you saw the spike like post and I to me, I think when you look at it, you can draw a pretty correlation to if whoever, if some people got it or not, and how, because when you supplement, when you take performance enhancing substances, it changes the structure of your blood. Like it causes your body to make more red blood cells. It changes the shape of your blood cells. Like that's what those drugs will do. And then you take another drug or a that will alter your blood, the the RNA shot, like
Right.
that's
Right.
there. You're kind of there's a whole new mixture that they probably never would take into consideration making that for a bunch of bodybuilders that have altered blood, and then they're taking this shot that's altering the blood as well, and it's a dangerous combination. And I've made a couple posts about it and talked about guys like, hey, if you've been and you are currently using performance enhancing drugs, you need to be very, very careful. Like you need to look into blood markers and make sure that your blood's not getting too thick. You need to look at there's
Yeah.
you see a lot of these guys having strokes or clots that are causing heart attacks and all that stuff. Like that's not normal. Bodybuilding people don't usually have that issues, and now that all of a sudden these issues are popping up. So to me, you can draw a correlation between the two.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of comments like that for sure. When you were, obviously you're still a competitive bodybuilder. I don't think you've actually, I've seen you on a Flex Lewis podcast. You said you're taking a step towards business, but you're not officially retired. But when you used to compete like every year, right? And you in a prep mode, were you health conscious, or when you in that mode, you were just like, I'm going for it? Sometimes a lot of bodybuilders, they kind of like, right now I care about stepping on the stage. I don't care about, I'm going to worry about it later. You know what I mean? The health wise. What was your approach to that?
It was, I always kept it in the back of my mind, like, and you got to the risk reward, and I tell that to a lot of young guys coming up and guys like, is it worth putting yourself through this? And bodybuilders are very extreme. Bodybuilders are very A-type. Like, I don't care. I'm going to do what it takes to win. And that's what usually it takes to be a champion in the sport. You have to do extreme things, training, supplements, all that kind of stuff. I was always very conscious, like, I would always think long term, and I always looked at bodybuilding like a marathon, not a sprint. Like not hey, how big can I get? How fast can I get there? Obviously, you're doing the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, you're doing the Olympia, the Arnold. Like you're gonna push yourself to extremes. You're gonna do a little bit more, knowing that. And but not. I would always give myself the breaks after that. I would always give myself time to heal, recover, because you're pushing yourself to extremes. And I mean, there's been times after a show where I put myself in from overtraining in rhabdo, where your body starts breaking down proteins, and I'm like, man, my pee's changing color. Like, what's going on? So I look at, okay, we need to address nutrition. We need to get some blood work done. We need to give my body a break, pull back on my training. Like I was always very conscious of it, not like I'm just going to keep going, keep pushing. I mean, our bodies are amazing at being resilient, but at the same time, eventually something's going to break. Eventually something, your body can only hold on so long before it tells you like no more,
100%. I agree with you. Your first Olympia was 2013, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you remember from that year?
I remember walking on stage, like being backstage, seeing the guys, like, and I remember almost being back there like a fan, and more than a competitor. As a competitor going to Olympia, man, you have to have this, like, I'm here to win. We're going to war. Like, let's do this. But I remember being backstage, like looking at the guys. I'm like, man, there's Phil and there's Kai, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm looking at it back here like a fan, and I know all these guys, but at the same time, like it was definitely a different experience, more of like not being as in it. Like, the more I competed in Olympia, the more I felt like I belonged there, and I wanted to win. Like I went there with a winning mindset. First one is like, man, whatever happens, my first one. If I do good, it's great. If I place last, like, it's my first one. Right. But now, and then the later I went in my career, the more times I did it, it was more like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win, and I'm gonna bust my ass. I'm gonna beat these guys, and that's where it changed. But yeah, the first one I remember, it was like a little bit deer in headlights feeling, like, oh man, I got the nerves. I know I'm a fan of that guy, yet I'm getting on stage to compete against him. So
A big part of your career was in an era where Phil Heath went on a 7-year run. And I don't know if you were there, competing against him, right? But it was a crazy time where every year it seemed like he's coming to win, right? Everybody else is competing for other spots. And it just felt like that he was so dominant, like completely undefeated, impossible to defeat him, right? Kai tried, like it was just year after year. And it's almost like the fans of bodybuilding were complaining about that, right? What was it like going into competition, knowing that most likely he's gonna win again? Like, does that like mess with your head a little bit, you know what I mean?
It does. It discourages you as an athlete, I think, you know, and that's the one thing that I've voiced to even some promoters. Like, you see a poster and there's only 3 guys on it, yet there's 20 guys competing. I'm like, well, is it the 3 guy show or is there 20 guys doing the show? So it kind of gives you a little bit, but I always kind of had the mindset like, hey, it really matters who shows up on that day. You never know. He might get sick the day before and flatten out, not look good, and he might lose. Like, there's always that unknown factor in bodybuilding, because again, you may see a picture, and this is very common in bodybuilding. Guy posts two week out picture, like, holy crap, that guy's going to win, and then he shows up on stage and he's a water ball, looks like crap, and whether it was he got sick or something happened and he didn't carb up right or whatever it was, but that can happen in bodybuilding, and there's more times than not it does. So I always kind of went into it like, yeah, Phil's the favorite, and I'm going to train to beat Phil. But at the same time, like, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if he's going to get sick. You never know if he's going to drop out. Like, so there was always that option in my mind, knowing like, anything could happen.
Mm-hmm. But that was a crazy time, man. That was Phil
it was a golden age, another like era of bodybuilding. That was very unique. I mean, great competitors. I mean, you hear the guys like from the 90s say 90s was the best, and then like early 2000s and Jay and Ronnie, like that was the best. And and it's kind of like I can relate it to music. Like, you think about, man, late 90s rock and roll was the best rock compared to what it is now. It's garbage. Like, you're always going to think your generation is the best. So
suddenly we have this rise of influencers, right?
It's not just some meatheads that always just go in, lift, and that's it.
People are promoting stuff, even like they selling like oils, like injectable oils.
They don't look good.
You worked with George Farah.
Placing top 3 at the Arnold was a big accomplishment.